Welcome to the Shutter Saga Podcast. I'm your host, Marvin Blue. Join me each week as we dive into amazing conversations with some of our industry's top leaders. We will talk about photography, business, and most of all, share the stories that have laid the foundation to our journey in this world we call photography. A couple of ways to support the show is to like, subscribe, and share the show with others. Leave those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and if you're a fan of seeing us live, we are on YouTube. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Again, thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. Welcome welcome on to another glorious day. Welcome to a new episode of the Shutter Saga Podcast. I am your host, Marvin Blue. With me, as always, is another wonderful guest that's taking time out of the day to discuss industry, life, photography itself. But before we get started, I need to announce we have our first sponsors. That's right, we went official, and now I've completely sold out and went corporate and took on a sponsorship because running these podcasts aren't cheap. So, I had to get some help from my friends. But no, in all seriousness, I would never take a sponsorship from a company that I don't believe in or support. So with that being said, our first sponsor, I'm proud to say, is with Cheetah Stands. If you're not familiar with Cheetah Stands, that makes some of the most durable stands that makes our lives a lot easier. It isn't just stands, it's all the things that we need to help our lighting equipment, help our setups, everything you name it, they do it. So just go to cheetahstands.com, mention my name, send them an email, and they will hook you up, okay? So thank you, Cheetah Stands, for sponsoring this crazy podcast and this crazy idea that I have. And thank you for the continued support. With that being said, also, I want to introduce my wonderful, wonderful guest. It's someone most of us are familiar with if we're in the AI space of editing. And if you're not, that means you use the other people, which is okay because we still love you anyways. But if you're not familiar with the little company called Aftershoot, they have taken our industry by storm. And it's led by none other than our guest today, Justin Benson. Justin, how you doing, bud?
Good. Thanks so much for having me.
Sorry, I was trying to think, can I make this a grander entrance or what?
Yeah, way to lift me up and I'll just let everyone down.
So if you're not familiar who Justin is, obviously you've seen his picture. You don't know it's him. He has this majestic beard that is styled to the nines. It's very, what's the term? Vaudevillain almost, if you want to say.
Like it. Yeah, I get that.
He's bringing back the classic vaudevillain look with the edge up with the the hair and the beard. It works. If I tried pulling it off, it would not look good. But I purposely didn't grow. I didn't shave specifically for this episode.
Good.
Just to honor Justin. So hopefully his wife doesn't make him go clean cut.
Nope, never gonna happen.
But Justin, how you doing, man? So let's just get right into your journey before we start talking AI, because obviously a lot of the people wanted to ask AI questions when I told them you're going to be on the show. But how did you get your start in this industry?
Yeah, so I used to work for film and television shows down in New York City. And part of that, I was a location scout. So they'd give me a script. I'd go out and the script would say, oh, we need XYZ location. So I'd go out, take pictures, get permission to shoot at different places, bring it back to the directors, and then show them the pictures. Through that journey, I started getting access to a lot of really cool places. So I just started taking photos for fun, of just things that I was like, yeah, I want that. So that kind of turned into, hey, you've got a little bit of a knack for this. And they started using some of those photos on the TV shows. And then they started having me photograph sets for magazines and stuff. And then that really kind of just kept going. And as many of us have, there was that, oh, I need a photographer for my wedding this weekend. Who's available? And I somehow got thrown into it. And my first wedding, it was terrible. I didn't do a good job, but I absolutely loved it. I was like, this is my career path. I'm going here. I want to be a wedding photographer. So I set to it from that point, and that led me to wedding photography.
And how long have you been doing wedding photography now?
So I started in 2011. So we're old, 13 years.
So you back in my day before there was this thing called mirrorless, and we were still using floppy disking.
Yep, exactly.
The floppy disk and the DVDs and burning it. You were burning
everything ran on AA batteries.
There you go. The good old days. You haven't lived until you had your Vistaprint business card made.
That's for sure. But it was, it's really cool because I've been able to have that journey, right? So I wish I was a photographer when film was a thing and I got to see it evolve and whatnot. But even just being from 2011, seeing the evolution of cameras and technology and flash and lighting and all of these things and how much the industry has advanced all the way to obviously AI and these sort of things. It's been quite a journey. So it's been fun to be able to flex and adapt and learn how to adjust throughout all the years.
What do you What do you think contributed to your biggest growth in these past, now it's been 15, are we at 15? No, 13 years now. So what do you think you contribute, what do you give credit to the most in your growth in the 13 years?
So for me, one of the biggest unlocked secrets that I think a lot of people don't harness is venue connections. A lot of times I'll walk into a venue when I'm going to photograph a wedding. I'll make friends with the coordinator. I'll chat with them. I'll make sure that we're always on the same page. We're always relaying information back and forth. And if I have like a boss there, like someone that's higher up, and I get to see them, I will ask them like, "Hey, what do you love about the venue? Is there anything that like I can feature for you or something that you want a photo of?" And a lot of times they do, right? Like they'll hire photographers to go take some detail shots, or they want a picture of the bride and groom in front of like the sign, or something like that. If you can incorporate that into your flow, you're instantly going to get marketed by them, right? So that venue is going to market them. The only person who's getting booked before you is the venue. So that's the point you need to try and capture people at. So for me, that was it. Biggest secret for me in growing that business was literally just making the connections, and I'm on like a bunch of preferred vendors lists, and I don't market. That's my marketing.
Yeah, same here. I follow that same suit. Build venue relationships have been key these past few years. Honestly, it started before COVID, but after COVID, even more. It's been what sustained me. I'm not running Google ads or anything like that. But something that a lot of people, if they haven't witnessed you in person, that I've been fortunate to witness is your ability to what I call sight read, which is walk into an environment, look around, and then you already know like where you want to take these shots, and you see it in a way that most of us that are untrained wouldn't see it. Like we see the stairwell just as up and down, but then you saw this unique pattern or things like that. Do you contribute your years in film and television kind of that help contribute that, being able to walk into an area and find the hidden gems, so to speak?
Yeah, I think we all have a knack for it. We just have to find it, right? So I think everybody can look at something and find beauty in it. And it's all about harnessing that skill set. So being able to walk into a place and say, okay, these are the things that interest me. Like these are different, unique elements that I can take and put together and throw into work. For me, that's why I think a lot of my work is like wider angles, when it comes to venues and stuff, because I'm showing off the entire space. There's always like a big grand entrance to a venue or some big feature that the venue has. No matter what the venue is, like someone went there for a reason. They booked that venue because they fell in love with something. So looking at it from their perspective, what is that something? Is it because there's a river in the background? Is it because there's arches somewhere? What is the thing that really locked them in? So that's kind of the mentality I go into it with when I'm looking at photos. I'll even ask them too. I'm like, hey, what do you love about this place? And not like that. I'll make it sound less like, hey, your venue. That kind of sounded like, hey, your venue's ugly. But I'll say like, oh, I love this venue. What's your favorite part? That sort of thing, just to kind of get a read on it. Because when they know what they love, it also helps me kind of guide that and get a little bit creative, because I want to feature that thing as much as I can.
Okay. And since you're a wedding photographer, I got to ask, what's one of your favorite parts of shooting a wedding?
Honestly, I would have to say I'm torn between sunset and night photos. So I really, night photos to me are cool. I bring too many flashes, but I have an open canvas. So I can really control every element of the image. So I can decide what I want to see, what I don't want to see. I have this like one setup that I do at this one venue, and it's 6 flashes. And I love doing it because it's just like I'm uplighting the building and backlighting and doing all sorts of stuff. So I really get to kind of push my own boundaries and get creative with that. But yeah, sunset, I mean, there's nothing better than like a little off camera flash, some sunset, and then looking at the back of the camera and going, awesome.
No, wait, let me rewind. You said six light setup? Because I'm only up to like 3 and 4 right now. So like, how did we get to a 6 light setup? Because that is every photographer that's listening to this right now is like going, oh crap. Because here they are, like the one light special king. Because you teach the one light class and everyone takes that and they run with it. How are we getting to 6 lights, man?
Yeah. So this venue in particular, there are these 3 arches, stone arches in the back that are like kind of the support of the building. And at night, it's entirely dark. There's nothing there. It's just there's like a couple chandeliers inside, and then you can see the reception hall above you with like if they have uplighting and that sort of stuff. But there is no lights at all. So really, what you have to do is look at that and say, how do I feature this in a unique way? For me, I immediately said, okay, I need to show the arches. That's the whole point of the shot. So I was like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, a flash on each column, uplight the columns. And then I was like, all right, we'll put one behind them so that I can illuminate a little bit of that architecture of the arch, and then obviously the key light on them. And that's how it just turned into 6. That one shot, a lot of people try and recreate it. And like I'm not a gatekeeper. Like if somebody messaged me and like, how'd you do that shot? I would give them the setting. I would say everything. Nobody ever does. They just try and replicate it, and then they don't do it because they don't uplight the building. So they just have like a key light and maybe a backlight, and they're like, and it's just not the same. But it's such an easy like thing. It's a signature shot. That venue uses it on every brochure for the past 4 years. They do their like annual brochures. Every single time it's the cover photo, because that's the thing about the venue, right? And that was that first time I was there. I was like, hey, what do you guys love? And they're like, we love the arches. Maybe you could feature the arches. So that was it. I found a cool way to do it. And yeah, and then they immediately put me on the preferred vendors list, and front of the brochure, 4 years and counting.
Nice. Well, I mean, you're not gatekeeping, because as soon as you said 6, everyone was like, okay, look, I only got 2 or 3, or some of us that have been around long, we got 4. So how do you do it with 2 lights? Or that trick is like, just, it isn't so much that he's gatekeeping, he's just got it more than what we're used to using. So
yeah, and there's other ways to do it, right? Like I could do it. It doesn't look as good. Like I remember there was one day it was raining all day, and the flashes, I brought them outside, and then I didn't put them in a bag or anything. And then there was like Godox flashes back then, and they got rained on and they burnt out, and I only had 3 working flashes. So I did a backlight, a key light, and then I put one up back behind them with like a softbox to try and like a smaller softbox to kind of just spread the light and try and uplight as much as I could. And it looked fine. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't the same effect, but it still covered it.
You could tell. I mean, when it's you doing it, you can look at it and say, "Okay, I saw where I cut my corners at to still try to make it somewhat happen."
I can see it. Yeah,
you can see it, but everyone else is probably like, "Dude, this is next level. How do I do that?"
Exactly.
Well, it's funny, like when I would see you teach the one light class, because again, that's whether it was Vegas or even recently Atlanta. I was telling someone, I said, people here see the one light class and they think, oh, that's easy, but I said, understand, that is 90% of how we're going to do most of our stuff, because it's 6 lights sound great, but when you don't have the time and you're limited at post wedding and you only get 10 minutes for that portrait, you do not want to be running around with 2 or 3 lights trying to set them up. You got 1 light and you only have a limited amount of time. So it's doing the most with what you have, especially when it comes to timing. So I always say,
I would never do a light setup when my clients would be waiting on me.
Oh, absolutely.
Something like, I leave them up on the dance floor. Usually my second shooter is still there. I try and do it right before second shooter leaves. I say, hey, you cover the dance floor. I'm going to call you. You bring them down. And then, I go set it all up and everything. But outside of that, exactly like you're saying, honestly, so many photographers get hung up on like, I need to use flash. I need to, but for me, if the natural light is solid, I prefer natural light all day. I'm going to focus on natural light. I want to get those beautiful images. And then I will bring out the flash pretty much every time for one kind of unique standard shot, even if it's one flash. I love doing like a wide angle, nice and low, and looking up towards the sky if I can get like a little bit of a hill to kind of just make them look like they're up in the sky. So for me, that like I'll always just bring something in, but generally speaking, I'll try and use as much of the natural light as I can.
Nice. And let me ask you, I guess, because we're talking about lighting. I mean, we're going down some rabbit holes here, and I love it. This is why I love doing this. But so what's pushed your growth? Because I'm going to say, and it, again, 13 years when you started with the, hey, can you shoot my wedding, to now just being a powerhouse. Because before the after shoots, before everything, I knew you as a wedding photographer, and then I knew you as an instructor. And so it's like you see the evolution over the decade plus career that you've had. What's pushed you to continue to grow and like, in some ways be ahead of your counterparts and just continue to kind of be ahead of that curve?
I don't think there is such thing as ahead of the curve. I think everyone brings something a little different to the table. I think we did our after shoot retreat in Peru, and Christian Cardona, who's like a master of lighting, was in that. He was there and he attended my class, and it was all about off-camera flash.
I'm a little salty I wasn't there, by the way, especially when you shoot Rick and Kayla. I was like, really? Like, I missed out on the party of the party. Like,
yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
So he was sitting in the class, and the whole time I'm like, I'll never be able to teach him anything. right? There's no way. He is so talented. And he came up to me after the class and he was like, yeah, I learned a couple things. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, you approach some things a little differently. And it's not whether or not each one of us is better. It's just that your approach can be different. You don't have to do it one way. There's multiple ways to look at it. So for me to kind of like quote unquote be ahead of the curve, I'm not necessarily ahead of the curve. I just look at things a little bit differently. And I think we all do, right? And that's photography. We can learn it one way or we can learn it the other way. I tell everyone, like, the way I teach Flash is not right. Like, when you're taught how to use Flash, a lot of people are like, okay, take your camera out, get your right exposure, frame it all up the way you want it, take your test shot, see, dial in that exposure without the flash. Now bring in the flash and start doing this. And for me, I say throw that all out the window and like go straight for it. Set up your flash, guess your settings, right? 90% of the time, you'll be able to walk into a space and understand what your camera settings should be or approximately where they should be. So instead of like taking one picture, adding a flash, setting it, going through the whole process, do it all at once because you'll know immediately what things you need to adjust. You'll know immediately, okay, the background's too bright. I need to either, if you're doing high speed sync, increase my shutter speed or etc. Right? All the different pieces. You can figure it all out and you can make it less complicated for yourself, right? And that's how I look at it, is that if I take that one shot, I know what things I want to fix. So I'm going to go fix those things. The subject's too bright, the background's too bright, or the subject's too dark, or the background's too dark. Those are the 4 elements. And there's only a few ways to move my equipment and change my settings to incorporate that and correct it. So I do it all at once. Usually my first shot is like mediocre and my second shot is exactly it. And I'm ready to move on because I'm not playing like, oh, test shot, do this, add this, change that. I'm not 3 shots in. I'm second shot. I'm ready to go.
Nice. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Steve. I get, but again, that comes with the muscle memory too, the way you're going about it. Stay trial and error and years of messing up before you like, oh, now it makes, you can just walk in half power and just start dialing it in.
Yeah, you would think it is, but that's kind of like the idea I try and teach is that it doesn't have to be muscle memory. You do have to memorize 4 different things, right? There's just 4 steps, right, to it, right? So when you walk into the room, you set those settings, you set up the flash at half power, or for instance, if I'm doing outside's even easier, right? Like I think a lot of people struggle balancing daylight and flash. And it's a lot easier when you walk in and there's only a handful of things you can do to fix your image, right? If I put my flash at full power, I set my settings at ISO 100, f11 or whatever right in the middle, and I take that first shot. If my subject's too dark, there's one option. Move my flash closer. That's all I can do. There's no other answer to it. If my subject's too bright, I can dial the flash back or move it back, right? So I can play with some other things, but there's really only a couple ways to get out of that situation. So if you just memorize the 3 things, move your flash closer, move your flash backwards, or change your aperture, right? Those 3 things are the only things you can do. And if you know what they do, boom, you're done. It's simple enough. You take your first shot and you know immediately, okay, background's too bright, increase my aperture. Background's too dark, decrease my aperture. Move my flash closer or move it back. And then you're in. So it's those 3 things. I have like a nice sheet to kind of explain it. That's how I do it. That's how I learned it. And that's why I kind of like, I tried learning Flash when I started so my background in film and television, I studied lighting, right? So I was watching what all the TV shows did, but I was also like, I went to film school and I studied like lighting in film school, but that's a constant light. And you're like, okay, I'm going to turn the dial a little bit down and fix it, right? It was a lot easier. So when I went to learn Flash and they were like, okay, you take your test shot and you do this and you do that, my brain couldn't put the pieces together. I would immediately crumble because I'd say, okay, here's my subject. I put the flash up. So I threw it all out the window and just started teaching myself. And I started doing it exactly that way. I said, oh, I'm going to take one shot with everything together. And I'm going to start playing with the different pieces till I understand how I fix the bad photo and make it better.
Nice. And I know the photo nerds out there, heads are like exploding right. They're like, oh my God, I literally just got a 1 answer masterclass. Yes. Rewind and hear it again. Yes. Mess up and dial it in. That's the cliff notes of that.
Yes, exactly.
So let's pivot over into Aftershoot, man. Because like I said, I'm not even sugarcoat when I say it's been a game changer for many of us. Editing AI itself has been, holy shit. How did we edit 10 years ago when we were just trying to figure out Lightroom, and now here we are, like half of us like, I don't even use Lightroom, I use this. The methods and workflows have now completely changed. The game has changed. But you leading the helm with Aftershoot, I mean, oh God, so many questions with that. But we'll just start with the obvious. Like, how did you come about it? What was the vision? Did you see what it's become today? How did you see that already when you first started, or was this one of those you've been hitting lightning in a bottle multiple times now?
No, so actually the idea is not mine. So Harshit is a founder. So me and Harshit, I found out about Aftershoot before it was Aftershoot. It was just a guy who wanted to talk to photographers. Somebody posted in a Facebook group and was like, "Hey, there's this guy." He messaged me. He wants to talk to photographers and understand more about like your culling process. And I was like, "Well, I really hate culling, so I'm gonna talk to."
We all.
Yeah. So I sent him a message. We went back and forth. He jumped on some calls with me. I talked to him about how I cull and what I'm looking for and that sort of stuff. And he went back to the drawing board and built an application. He sent it out to 50 photographers in March of 2020. So he sent it out to 50 photographers. 40 of them didn't even answer. 10 of them got back to him and were basically like, "Yeah, give up. This is not even a possibility." I got back to him and I was like, "This is really, really bad, but we can make this work. And this is how I think we can make it work." And we just started from there. And that was when I got sucked up into the mystery. But from that point forward, there was always sights on what's next. That was just culling. Culling was such a big problem and it was so challenging to solve. But we knew that eventually it was going to be editing, right? It was all of the processes now retouching, right? We saw these things all coming, and what are the places that AI can actually intervene? Granted, I don't know enough about AI to be able to be like, yeah, this is like conceptually all of the things that are going to happen in the next 5 years. But I can tell you what it's capable of now, and I can tell you what we want to do with it as capabilities increase as well.
Nice. I mean, it's I was a witness of the doing an entire wedding, full shooting day, 11 hours of coverage and editing ready for delivery in under 48 hours, just as a cocky move. Cause I was talking crap to a bridesmaid and she's like, "My photographer got my pictures in 10 days. I said, well, if I push it, I can get it done in 5 days. And then the bride hears me say that and she's like, "If you get it done in 5 days, I'll give you an extra grand." I'm like, done. And in my head, I'm like, God, I hope I can pull this off. And we're driving home, and most of the work was done by the time the drive was over with getting home. And then I just woke up the next day, ate breakfast, went there, had my coffee, my muffin, and just went to work and looked up by lunchtime, ready to go. It was
it's changed so much since its inception, right? The program itself has changed so much, but like when it comes to actually what I do, changed everything. I had to, so I get all the early stuff that we release and I have to test it and stuff. So I have like multiple versions of Aftershoot open at the same time. A couple days ago, I had 2 conflicting versions. So ultimately none of them worked. I had to and I was like, all right, I'm going to go. I just had 200 black and white photos I needed to do. I was like, I'll just apply my preset and go through it. I applied the preset, got 2 photos in, and I said, nope, screw this. I'm going to go delete the Aftershoots and reinstall the ones I need because I will never go
It's
back.
like you start doing it by hand. You're like, oh God. It's like
driving
driving a stick shift or a car without power steering. You're like, wait, how did y'all do this? Like, what is this?
Even close. Like the preset goes on and I'm like, oh man, the exposure's like a stop off at this point. Like you forget how challenging it was once you've really adapted and adjusted. I mean, for me now, it doesn't mean that I increased my turnaround times. I actually just kept them the same. But what I do is I procrastinate a lot more. So I focus on other things. I have family and Aftershoot and all this other stuff going on. So I'm like, oh, if my wedding is due tomorrow, I can start it now because it only takes me 3 hours to cull and edit a wedding. So I'm like, I can do it now and then I'll give it to him tomorrow, no problem.
Now, full disclosure, everyone, if you're a wedding photographer, please make sure you're still putting in timelines on expectations on when you're going to be done. This is 2 guys, just talking shop. We're not telling everybody get your weddings turned over in 3 days, but it can be done. But also make sure you give yourself plenty of time because life is life. And, we are human and we get tired.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, and we will procrastinate because we're supposed to be editing and we're watching TikTok.
I would say for a photographer who's adopting like an AI workflow like this, you can absolutely get it done very quickly. And if you want to, Totally, but don't promise it now until you've done it for a full season, right? Because I think
Absolutely.
knowing that it's, again, over promise, under deliver. No. Under deliver, over promise. No, other way around.
Over deliver, under promise.
Yeah.
Like my contract say 90 days, but I know I'm getting it done in under 30 easily.
Yeah.
And during the busy season and during the slow season, I'm getting it done in 2 weeks. And it's not because I'm, it's really just because I want to be done and I want to move on. My next goal is to get to the sales session while they're still excited, while they're still happy, while they sit there still unwrapping all these envelopes with money in it. This is why I want to do that, because now we can start talking about the albums and things like that, because I have everything ready. I can put it into its galleries and start the Zoom meeting and that process. Obviously that's,
It goes a long way.
it does, because it's one of those, it's like a new car, when you first buy it that weekend, you buy it as fresh. That's your sneak peek. And then after you've driven it for like a week or two, you're like, you love it. But then after you make your first car payment, it's losing its luster. So if you wait 90 on, if you deliver it on day 80 because you have a 90 days on your contract or something or whatever it is, if you wait till the very last day to get it to them, you fulfilled your contract, but that new car smell is worn off. And so I think it's just,
they're less excited at that point.
Exactly.
Like, okay, great, finally
realities kick back in. They've had time to fight with each other, and now they realize, oh crap, we spent a lot of money, versus get them spending while they're still in the I want to spend money mood before they realize, oh crap, we spent way too much.
Yeah, exactly. They're still amped up, they're still excited. So yeah, but if you're going to go that way, I would just start doing it before you promise it, right? Like I would keep it at 90 days or whatever your delivery time is normal. Keep that mentality, and then do a full year of like, hey, I'm going to do it in 2 weeks, but don't tell anybody. Just do it in 2 weeks. Send it off to them. You can do it faster if you want to, right? If the process is there. One of the tricks that you can use, especially if you want to deliver early and like try and capture them in that sales funnel, is just say, I couldn't stop thinking about how amazing your wedding was. So I just hunkered down for the whole week and worked on it. Like, still make it seem like you're doing a lot of work, even though AI is kind of picking you up and getting you there. And then they'll still be excited. They still have that willingness to buy extra products.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hit him with the, I was feeling ambitious and was in the zone, and and I'm practically done. So let's go ahead and what day works for you next week for your follow up set meeting, so we can go ahead and start discussing your album design and things like that. They're like, wait, the picture's almost done. I said, pick a day. By the time that day rolls around, I will be done by the day. And at that point, I'm already done. I just haven't told them yet. I haven't officially said I'm done yet. And and I'm just setting it up, because it's like, I'm going to set up my own spike, and then I'm just going to spike it and go from there. Because again, at the end of the day, it isn't, it's always been about being a profitable business, making money, but at the same time, you're still delivering an experience, and you're still delivering on that experience, and that lasting experience that you're giving them is, not only did you, shoot the wedding out, knock it out the park, but then you got them, while they're still excited, while they're still in that honeymoon phase, they're already getting their pictures and they're ready to brag about it and show their friends and family. And it's like, imagine getting them their wedding pictures before they even went on their honeymoon, because they're the couple that got married and they don't leave for another week or two. And now they're going to their honeymoon with already a setup of pictures that they can already show people. So when they say, "Oh, you guys just got married," yeah, here are wedding pictures, because people love to talk about their weddings and they can't wait to show the pictures. And I have been a part of that career span where I had brides calling me from their honeymoon saying, "Hey, can we get a sneak peek? Because we want to show pictures. We want to show them at dinner. We're meeting with some family in Hawaii, and I want to show them like how awesome the pictures were." And I'm like, I know, and I know they're kind of gassing me up to get me to get some more pictures to them. But again, what we do, we grow and evolve like this. The industry is changing, so how do we evolve with it? And I really felt like AI was that move that I wanted to be the peers. I'm like, no, I want to touch every image and make sure it's done right. But it's like, time is time, and as you start to get limited on your time, you have to like make those decisions on what can you cut back on it. What's going to help you overall. And it's now my biggest thing is, how much time can I buy back for myself?
Yeah, the thing about AI is that you can't just let it go, right? I tell everyone AI is stupid, right? It really, like, everyone thinks AI like it's intelligent. It's artificially intelligent, right? It's not actually smart. It's a pattern process. So it's going to get some things wrong, with like culling. I always measure my statistics, right? Because the culling learns from you. So the more you use it, the more it starts to understand like how you choose your images. Now for a full wedding, I think the last one, it was like 98.6% accurate to my culling. So it really kind of like understood what I wanted to do. And I still had to go through the entire thing. I had to get rid of extra images that I don't want, because I'm like, oh, it's going to over deliver all the time, because it doesn't have contextual understanding, right? AI doesn't know, okay, that's the bride's grandma and that's a sentimental photo. It just says, okay, here's a photo. It's in focus, it's out of focus, it has good emotion without any context, right? So there's going to be photos in there that are just totally trash because it doesn't have context, and I get rid of those. I still have some work to do, but I'm doing the entire wedding in 3 hours, right? The editing is going to get me 95% of the way there. I'm going to go in. I still have to Photoshop. I still have to go in and tweak on some images, and that, for me, a lot of times it's just like I have it set so when I hit the plus sign, the exposure goes up by like 0.05 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just do that on like every image, because I'm like, yeah, I'm editing.
Yep.
But even when they're good, I'm like, yeah, this is perfect. They'll never know. But for me, I want to have that touch. I want to have that feeling that I did the whole thing, even though I really...
Yeah, it's still like, it's almost like having someone prep everything in the kitchen for you, but you still go in there and you cook it, even though they got cut up all the ingredients for you, they cut the stove on for you. You still put, that last little piece, you still got to stir it one time.
I'm still putting the salt on.
Exactly.
Steak.
We're salt baying it real quick. Let me just go ahead and sprinkle it. Yeah, I did something, but no, I definitely get it, because it's just one of those, you can't not touch it. I think that was my biggest struggle, is at one point when I hired someone to do my editing for me. And it was just like, okay, it was cool, but then I would just be, because then I want to look at it, and then I found myself looking at it more when I hired it out, because I was so scared that they were going to, not have my spin on, or not see my vision, or take out something that I really wanted in there. Like there was that one picture, yeah, the eyes were closed, but they were closed for a reason, and it was like, so those are the things, like, obviously, because you're a part of the story, you got to experience it, what's important, what's not important. So
context, other people don't have context.
Exactly.
And that I face the same thing. And like, for me, paying 35 cents an image or whatever for someone to color correct, and me to still go in and be like, I still need to look at it.
Yeah.
So,
let's just make it a little bit brighter.
Yeah. And then when AI came around originally, like, AI editing, a lot of it's less expensive, right, for a lot of people to do like pay per image sort of AI editing. But what I found is that I still have to make some adjustments. It's just not perfect. It's pretty close, but I still have to work on it. And so for me, knowing that I still have to work on it, and then if it's wrong, I feel like I threw away money, kind of killed me. And that's where, like, flat rate for us, it was always about, hey, AI is a tool that you're supposed to be leveraging, that's supposed to help you along, but you're still involved. So you shouldn't be paying for its mistakes. You should be paying just all the good, the bad. You get everything. You could use it as much as you want. And that's really, like, that's why we don't charge per image. It's just flat rate across the board for everything.
Nice. All right. So, I could keep talking editing and workflow all day, and then I'll lose most of my audience, because they, when I put out the, my group chat that I have, like, hey, this is going to be on show, what question should I ask? It's like, it's 15 of us, and they're all photographers. So I'm always getting the funny questions and things like that. But, obviously, now correct me if I'm wrong, you do work with your wife, but is she in the capacity of, she's a photographer just like you, or is it just she's more behind the scenes? Because I never got a clear understanding, but I know she works hand in hand with you. Just I never understood what her role was specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So she is my second shooter a lot of times. So I have 2 second shooters that I kind of rotate in and out, because she travels a lot. So she's also working at after shoot. She does our partnerships and ambassadorships and all of that sort of stuff. So she runs that program, and a lot of times that means that she's going to conferences, and then I'm stuck without a second shooter.
So the question was, how do you manage, because I get a lot of work-life balance questions. So working with your wife, how have you managed that, and how have you avoid being killed?
Early on, she wanted to kill me a lot. I learned a lot from that experience. But what we decided, especially when it comes to like photographing a wedding, we said, okay, we're not married for the wedding, right? We're not together. Don't act like we're together. We're coworkers. It's twofold, right? So if you're getting a tip from your couples, if they know you're married, they're not going to give the second shooter their tip, because they're like, oh, they're married. It's going to the same house. I can just tip them once. So it does help you in that regard too.
Yeah.
But as far as actually going and photographing things, it makes it so that we both know that, like, in a time of frustration or whatever it is, or difficulty, you're 2 people working together. So treat each other like you're just 2 coworkers, and then it's never going to be personal, right? It's not going to be like, oh, I'm so mad that you did this. It's more like, hey, my coworker messed this up, so we're going to fix it.
That's the avoiding. Like I said, I love my wife, but I mean, she stayed out of it. She is a behind the scenes support system, which is perfect for me because I already know like I'm difficult enough to deal with at a wedding. So
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I had we all have our moments. You get stressed and you get frustrated and whatever it is, and you're like, right, and that's really where that boundary came from, where it was just like, okay, I may turn to you and just be frustrated with you, but I'm not actually frustrated with you. I'm just frustrated at the situation, and you just happen to be there. And unfortunately, because we have that more intimate connection, I feel more comfortable taking out my frustration to you, that as opposed to taking out my frustration to the situation. So, definitely, it took a while to kind of get to that point. I definitely think early on there was a lot of weddings where like she didn't talk to me on the way home.
Oh yeah.
Not because I was mean or anything, but just like it was just that moment where I was like, I'm not doing what you're asking me to do. I know you have a really good idea and it's really creative and whatever, but I need to get this done and I can't focus on like experimentation. Right.
Oh yeah.
I'm behind schedule. Like, leave me alone.
I think the biggest one for me lately has been, you're in a wedding, and circumstances prevent you from doing something that you knew would have been better or giving it your best or whatever. Like whether it just was hot that day and then it zapped the bride out. So then by the time portraits came along, she's only giving you 5 minutes. And you're like,
Yep.
Let's come on, suck it up. Give me the 45. There is 3 locations that you want to get. If you quit now, we've only been to 1 location, and you're thinking on the back end because you're like, she's gonna get mad if we don't get these pictures. But then it's like you just got to take that step back and just say, all right, do whatever you can. You try to give her as much as you can in that one moment because if you try to force it, it's gonna ruin her day. It's gonna piss her off. They're not gonna be receptive, and you just got to take the L on that one. But and I've tried to pivot where it's like, you know what, you're tired. It's cool. How many days before you go on your honeymoon? Great. Let's come back here in 3 days and let's shoot some portraits here. Let's get back in your dress. You try to convince them, whatever you can, but when it doesn't go that way, just to have that frustration, how have you been able to like overcome your frustrations, like kind of on the spot when you have to like really make multiple pivots throughout the day to still keep the bride happy, but no, artistically, you're not going to get that 100% like you wanted, like you envisioned.
Yeah. That's an amazing question. So for me, I'm all about pivoting. I think as a photographer, it's more about problem solving than it is actually just going out and taking photos, especially on a wedding day, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to run into problems. So at a wedding back in August, first look was an hour late. So we were already behind out of the gate. It was an extremely hot day at a super amazing location that I was thrilled to photograph. There was a steam train and everything. We get out, we start doing some photos, and one of the brides just was like, my stomach's not well, I gotta go. And so for me, I was like, all right, that's the worst thing that's ever happened, right? Like, this is like the best location ever. So what I did is I immediately pivoted into recovery mode. So we didn't get all the family photos we needed done. We didn't really get many of the brides together at that point. So I was like, okay, let me think of the strategy that I can steal her for 5 minutes here, steal her family for 5 minutes there. And I immediately go to problem solving. So a lot of times when I'm like, okay, it's not going as planned, instead of getting frustrated by it not going as planned, I'm immediately looking at how do I get to my destination? Even if it's not what I thought it was going to be, how do I get to that destination? And I convey that to them too. I say, hey, it's super hot. I totally get it. Don't worry about it. Here's my plan. I think if we do these photos at this time, and then if you just give me 10 more minutes later at this time, I'll make some amazing stuff happen for you. And that's where, like, again, the night shots kind of come in handy, because if we had a bad session because it was hot and whatever, and we had to cut it short, when it comes to like the formal side of things, I can always say, all right, give me 10, 15 minutes later. A lot of times I'll even preemptively do that. Like if I know that it's going to be a nice sunset, I'll say, hey, I know you guys are kind of like exhausted. If we cut it short now, can you give me 10, 15 minutes later and we'll do sunset? And then 9 times out of 10, they're like, yeah, I'm done with photos. So let's do it later. And then when I come back to them later, half the time they're like, nah, we're kind of just having fun. And I'm like, oh, but you said I could have those 10, 15 minutes. I'll make it extra fast. I'll set everything up. Just give me those 5 minutes. You'll love it. I promise. And then we just go out and do 5 minutes instead. But at least I'm working towards that goal periodically.
Nice. So yeah, constantly thinking, constantly pivot is always important for me. It's just, again, I do my best to not get frustrated or lose my cool or lose my professionalism in those moments. But it's like, I go in with okay, here's plan A. and then I have plan C, plan B, and plan C and plan D on in the back pocket, because again, with time comes experience, and experience has taught me that if this happens, this is what could be affected from it. So you always go in ready to just like, okay, you have this ready to go. And, if you're only going to get 10 minutes, what are the two absolute places you can shoot at that are close by that isn't going to wear them out? Okay, do everything right here and do everything right here. And then maybe it's enough. And that's where, things like speed posing and just, you're not going to see me on a wedding day going through Pinterest trying to find out poses. I preach all the time, learn posing as fast as you can. And just, even if you just have 6 poses, just learn those 6 poses and master them. And you'll grow from that too. Just, learn how to build up to your signature pose and all that good stuff,
Once you have a flow, it's really easy to like just reenact that flow, right? What works, it doesn't work. You can skip the experimentation. You can say, okay, good, this is perfect. I know these 5 poses are going to work really good with this couple, so I'm going to just bang out these 5 poses, and then I've got a lot. And that's a lot of what I do, right? So I start every session with like basically a round of speed posing. They make a little V shape, looking at the camera, looking at each other, touching noses, kiss her on the cheek, kiss him on the cheek, kiss each other, zooming in, zooming out, and I'm getting 30 photos right off the bat. So within 2 minutes, I'm getting 30 photos, so I have a safety net. Now I can start going outside of that safety net and going to my other poses, the more elaborate ones, the more creative ones, and start playing around with some things that I'm walking out of there. I've already captured the easy stuff. They've got the one looking at camera that everybody needs. They've got the one, they've got all these things. So now it's
the mom and dad shots, everything,
Yeah. So same with family. I'm just crushing it through. Anytime I can grab a photo, I'm grabbing a photo, because it just adds to the overall end goal, and I'm moving through things faster.
Absolutely. And to defend my position, I tell people all the time, yeah, you may say, God, I've done these quick 6 pictures that I've done all the time. I've done it 100 times. That's their couple's first time doing it. So it may be your 100th time, but that's their first time. So to them, it is the greatest picture they've ever taken. Yeah, to you, absolutely. It might have been the 101 you've done this month, but so it's always one of those, we got to get out of our own ways, and remember that every time we're behind the camera, it's someone new in front. We may be the same person behind the camera, but it's always someone new in front of our camera. So you have to.
That's funny.
Remember that.
I'll go, like, I'll have weddings where I don't get to be creative, right? Like timeline, whatever it is. And I just get like the basic stuff. And those couples are so freaking pumped on their photos. And the whole time, but at the end of the night, I'm like, this was the worst wedding ever. I didn't get to do like something really cool or whatever it is, like that epic sunset or that night shot or whatever it is. And they're like, oh my God, these photos are amazing. And I'm like, yeah, it's boring for me, right? Like, it's just that I don't say that, but it's we have to get out of our own ways. Just,
I had one bride. I think her biggest thing was she just wanted the perfect dipped kiss picture. She just wanted the perfect one. She's just, that is her goal. And I said, if we don't know nothing else, let's just get this one picture. So every time we went to a new spot, I always went back to the dip. And everyone's like, man, you were heavy on the dip. My second shooter was messing with me. She was like, are you in the dip friends? I said, dude, this is what she wanted. And I swear, every one of her pictures that she posted, even though I mean, when I say I delivered, we delivered, knocked this thing out the park, gorgeous. But everything she posted, dip picture here, like all she wanted was these amazing dip pictures. And then when you go to her social media, you look back, most of her pictures, her dipping, that leg getting pulled up, that's just her thing. So it's like, it may not have been my thing, but she was like the best dips I've ever had. And like all of her posting was about her being dipped in life, dipped in this wedding, dipped, her everything, dipped in her career, what you name it. It's just something about the word dip and her being dipped. It was a metaphor for her. So I was like, let's knock it out. And I mean, she's ordering everything. Every one of her dip pictures, she got ordered prints in it. One of the, you thought the standard epic one that I took was going to be over the mantle. Nope. It's her being dipped after the first kiss, because they even said, he goes, we're doing 2 first kisses. So be ready. We're doing the standard kiss. And then once we get that done, I'm going to look at you, give me a nod. I'm going to dip her. And then I'm going to get that kiss too. He didn't want that first kiss to be the dip though, because in case they mess up or the angle's bad, he still wants to have a good first kiss.
Yeah. Yeah.
He like went in going like, I'm ready for this. I got to do a double, And I was like, why are you looking at me for the signal? He was like, I just want to make sure you got the standard, the shot. Because when I give it to you like that, I'm going to look at her again. And then everyone's going to put their cameras out. Then we're going to shock them. That way everyone's like, oh, it will catch them off guard. Because,
awesome.
So yeah, I totally get it. But yeah, it's just, I always say, like, you may get tired of doing something behind the camera, but in front of the camera, the person in front of it is always a new person. So just give it to them, give them the 100% no matter what. And it'll pay off, because, you reward yourself when you surprisingly do something that you didn't think was going to happen, and then that picture came out amazing, and then to get their reaction, it makes it all worth it again. And it's like, why do we go down this crazy circle of life in photography? Because of these moments right here,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
What's been one of the best reactions you ever got, like that just stands out with all your years?
So this one, it's not a reaction. It's an action that's been recurring. So I photographed the wedding of a bride and groom, and like the mother had terminal brain cancer. And so it was a really like special event. My favorite photo I've ever taken was at that event. Like they did the mother son dance, and everyone's crying in the room. All the family started circling in, and I took the camera and I held it up as high as I could. And the mom looked right at the camera, and everyone's hugging her, and like it was such an emotional picture. So the action of that was then the daughter was getting married, and she called me. I want you to shoot my wedding. It's a little bit rushed because, she's not doing great, but we want to try and squeeze it in. And so then I was like, yeah, of course, let's do it. Booked their wedding. And then about a month before their wedding, they called me and they're like, yeah, she's not going to make it past Tuesday. So we're going to do the ceremony now in our living room. And she's, bedridden and all that sort of stuff. And they invited me into their home, and it was just them, the officiant, and immediate family. And so for me, that it wasn't a reaction, right? It wasn't that they gave me some reaction. It's that they had such a good experience at the first wedding, that they invited me into their home, invited me to shoot their wedding. That family still refers me all the time. And I still go to they do like a car show to raise money for a scholarship for nurses in honor of the mother who passed. And I still go to that. Like it was just 2 weeks ago, and I went there, and it's like seeing family again. So that to me is that it's not a reaction. It's just I become involved in people's families now.
Yeah, I made the joke about, I said, when it comes for me, is those full circle moments. I told one of my couples, I said, "Oh, I'm never going to retire until I do your kid's wedding," and I said it to them jokingly because I got to take their pictures when they first started dating. And then they got engaged, and then they got married, and then they started a family, and they, the maternity pictures to the baby being born. Like, I've been a part of so many epic moments. So it's like now when their parents talk to them and they say, "Oh, we're getting ready to do this," they'll literally go in there and say, "Where's Marvin at? Why isn't he here? He better be, we don't do this without Marvin." It's like now I've become a part of the family. So now the joke is that I can't retire because the baby is, a newborn. They just had the baby this year. And I said, well, it looks like I'm in it for another 20 more years. Or they said, no, you can retire, but you 't to stay alive and then come out of retirement for that one wedding. Like, we're going to blow the dust off this old Canon R5. Can only imagine what's going to be the new camera when we get there. It's going to be like all like AI and glasses and rings or something like that. Some crazy. Just point your fist at him, and it just, it's this thing that you put over your eye, and it just records everything and then takes stills the entire time, No, I think it's the full circle moments. It's the fact that, and I was telling to a lot of new photographers that, I've been just working with, helping them develop their portfolios. I said, when you're at a wedding, you have to remember, we are privileged to be a part of their story, and they're trusting us with that. And I said, forget the money that we're making and forget all the business side of it. On the artistic side, we have this artistic privilege that not many other people get to have, and you have to treat it with with the respect that it deserves, because one day you can't hold the camera the way you used to, you can't stand the way you used to, you can't squat like you did to get low. It's the ability to do what we do today won't be around tomorrow, so cherish it and value it, because you never know when it's going to be your last time you actually get to do it, and that's the last time you get to tell your story. And I said, for me, I'm proud to say that my fingerprint is in over 1,000 homes with all the weddings and portraits and everything that I did. That's over 1,000 people that I've been able to touch over the years. And I think we've gotten to a point with all the speed and all the technology advancements and everything. We forgot the basics of why we love doing this, because again, there's so many jobs out there that pay so much more money, but it's like, why is it we keep torturing ourselves by picking up this camera and pushing our creative boundaries? But it's a privilege to continue to do it,
Yeah, you're welcomed into people's lives. It's such a unique and special thing. And like, yeah, some relationships are transactional, right? There's going to be some that you're like, yeah, they'll never talk to me again, right? And it's just because that's who they are. But you're going to make some connections and meet some people along your journey that, are going to impact your life. And, we're lucky. We get to be a part of that. We get to empower ourselves, right? We're our own creative outlet. We get to do new things and experiment and have fun and have a different lifestyle because of it. So it's just something we're all lucky to be a part of.
Yeah, I always joke, like, I think about like those stories I have, like, whether it was like a bride I had this year, Candace. I knew her when she was 15. She was the younger sister to one of my brides when I first came back from Texas. And then 8 years later, I did her wedding, but then I also did like her senior portraits and everything. And just like, I remember when they said I'm getting married, I said, can I react like your dad, not like a photographer? Because I already know your parents are going to hire me. And like her parents like laughing because I'm like, who is this guy? When did you start dating? I'm checking your Instagram right now. I don't remember you dating anybody. What happened? And they're like, it's quick. We know it's a quick, engagement. We're in love. And, he's getting commissioned in the military and, we don't want to waste time. It's like, okay, I get it. And I'm looking at your dad like, you want to jump him? Can we beat him up in the parking lot? And I joke with the husband. Now I've done their wedding, and I always just, I hate you as much as the dad hates you. We don't like you. Like, I'm not a fan of you. Like, you're just messing with them and having fun. But it's just like, I think about those moments, just like, wow, I really did get to grow with this family. Or, and again, some of them are transactional, but like, man, the experiences that you have and the stories. And, last thing I forgot to ask you about, sorry, I'm going on a tangent here because I got my list of questions. Like, make sure you ask about this, the traveling. So somebody wants to know, where's been your favorite places you got to shoot at since you've got to go to quite a few places now?
Really blindsided me on that one. I would say
that should have been the question I sent in early, like the pre-asked questions. Where do you like to shoot at?
I think honestly, there isn't a single place that has me like, wow, I that was like my favorite place to shoot. I think that my favorite places to shoot are the places that are just okay, right? Like they're cool, right? It's something a little bit interesting, but you know what? I take that back. The Peru retreat, that was probably the best one. So we actually, for that retreat, we actually got to go up into some ruins and photograph on Incan ruins.
Okay. Nice.
And I was teaching, so I only got to take like 5 photos. But it was just so cool to be in that space with a bride and groom, and like there was alpacas, and like, yeah, that was.
I wasn't gonna let you give me an easy answer, like, oh, every time I'm anywhere I get to go, I love it. No, you're giving me an answer because that's everyone's like favorite. Because the people that get to travel, because like I think that was the most enticing thing about being a photographer. Is like, wait, we get to travel and get paid to do this? Like, are you kidding me? I'm gonna go here, like. Yeah, I'm from Texas. Like, I never leave DFW. Now all of a sudden, I'm seeing 14 countries and all these crazy places. And you're like, how does this happen?
No, Peru was probably by far one of the coolest places to shoot, just because of how naturally beautiful it is, how unique it is. There's interesting culture, but just the natural landscape. You can go to a location and just look around and see snow-capped mountains or like a glacier, or it's just. It was definitely a unique experience compared to others, I would say. Yeah, because like, photographing in Spain or Paris, or, I think, like, don't hate on me, but I think Paris is like a little bit overrated. I'm not.
I mean, for me,
like, ooh, Paris.
For me with traveling, I think the biggest, and this is totally not photography, like what entices me with traveling is I'm a foodie. So I love checking out the food culture and the food scenes anywhere we get to travel, whether it's somewhere in the stateside or even international. Like, I'm looking up, I'm going to look at where we're going to shoot at and study that, but I'm going to study the restaurants. What are the local places? Like, I'm trying to go in there, I don't want to be super touristy. No. If I'm going to go out of state or overseas or whatever, I'm not going to eat at a McDonald's. I want someone local. What is good here? What are they known for? I'm that guy when it comes to the food scenes.
Definitely.
It's like, if you come to Dallas and you want to go get barbecue, okay, I'm going to take you to Terry Black's, but I'm also going to take you to the food trucks, because that's where it's really at.
That's where it's at.
The food truck at the farmer's market, that's what you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this sandwich is life-changing. Obviously, when you go to different cities, like, what are they known for? Anytime we go to Vegas, we get everything there. So I love going like places I could just have good food at. And, obviously the photography is going to be there too. So I know it's going to be there. And
yeah,
that's a fun part too.
I mean, we make our own destiny when it comes to photography, right? So you can say, yes, this is a beautiful location. It's incredible to photograph here. But even if you're in like a mediocre location, that's why I said like my first answer was kind of just the average locations, because I like the challenge, right?
Okay.
It's easy to walk into like a gorgeous landscape and take beautiful photos and like you can't do anything wrong. But it's the times where you're kind of like, okay, I have to create something that is unexpected or that I don't believe that exists here. And that's really where it gets like, whoa, I made that. I didn't just capture it, I made it.
Yeah, I think I can agree with you on that one because there's places here in Texas where it's like when you shoot there and someone sees that picture, they know what it is. Like, the Dallas Arboretum is a prime example. Someone sees it, oh yeah, that's the Hanging Gardens and the Arboretum, Botanical Gardens. Yeah, I've been there. For me, I like the challenge of going somewhere that everyone's gone to and doing something unique or different. So when someone looks at that picture, like, yo, where were you at? And it's like, oh no, I was here. And they're like, that's not there. And they like, I've been there 100 times. I've never seen that. And you're like, nah, this is here.
I was
Oh
at this
man.
venue that was just ugly and boring, and I
Oh
missed
yeah.
this. Yeah.
That's why, like every year, now that I've started going, the past, I think it's been 3 years now in a row where I've gone to WPPI. I try to challenge myself to do something different in Vegas every time, because, and even if we go to the same place, like, yeah, we went to the Salt Flats or the Desert Flats, can I do something unique there? How can I challenge myself this time or whatever? Again, it's how can I make it look unique so when everyone doesn't look and go, oh yeah, that's the Desert Flats, I've been there. Oh, that's Ghost Town, I've been there. That's Neon Museum, I've been there. It's like,
yeah.
Yeah, but so how can I take the predictable and make it unpredictable? So I love that challenge, and I love that you share that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So what's next for Justin and his journeys? I know you guys got so much coming down the pipeline for after shoot, but creative. So on the after shoot side and then on the photography side, what's next for you?
Yeah. So we just announced yesterday or 2 days ago our retouching. And so when it comes to after shoot, the goal is to be that source, right? So we're looking at the problems. I still photograph weddings, still photograph sessions. So I have the same problems we all have, right? So what is the next thing we can do that really helps a photographer spend less time behind the computer, right? If you have the option to go photograph more or do something better with your family or have more fun or whatever it is, we want to empower that. So we're always looking at those things. So retouching is the next big one. We have some updates coming this year that are just going to basically dump how people work on their heads. So I'm so excited for those just because I've been playing with them a little bit and I can already see going to spend so little time doing such incredible things. So I'm really excited about that. Grand level, we're obviously traveling around the world and representing after shoot and doing all that fun stuff. So that's always exciting for me. I love sitting with other photographers and chatting and talking and absorbing. I'll be teaching at a couple workshops and conferences as well coming up. And, on a personal front, it's literally just pushing my boundaries still. I always want to try and create something different. I unfortunately had to kind of reduce some of the weddings I've been taking just because after shoot's grown into this amazing thing that takes up a lot of time. So I only have like 13 weddings this year, not going insane, but it's almost more exciting because each one is like an opportunity. I'm like, oh, I only have 13, so I've got to crush this out of the park. Whereas before, I'd be like, oh, it's 50. If I deliver status quo on this one, it's fine, right? They'll be happy. I'm happy. But now I'm like, I've only got 13 weddings. They gotta count. And so that it's always fun. And now I'm starting a little bit to just explore some other genres. Getting a little bit more like portrait work and senior sessions, that sort of stuff, just to again still stay active and still challenge myself because creatively that's really where I like to be challenged. So.
Nice. Oh, and one question that was actually, I promise I would ask this one. Let me make sure I read it correctly. With you having so many years in the industry, what is something that you wish you could have told your younger self?
Oh, that's a good question. I think if I could go back in time and tell myself anything, it would probably be to focus on the business aspect and creating the efficiency in the business aspect. I think it's very easy to say, okay, I'm going to start growing this business. You can get you can do all the stuff. You can get your insurance, you can get your business license, but if you're not really prepared to take on great things. So for me, the first year was that one wedding, and then that turned into 2 the next year, and then it turned into 7, and then the very next year it was 45. And I wasn't prepared to go from 7 to 45 because that's
a jump.
That's a leap, right? So, and from that point forward, it was always 60 plus. So up until this year. So it was always 60 plus weddings. And I think that it took me a few years to really adopt and understand Studio Ninja and getting a workflow system that can get people in and capture leads and tracking those sort of things and all the business things that, I think a lot of photographers kind of don't focus on early on. So like locking in your workflow, your backup system, all the boring stuff, because the photography side of things, if you focus the energy on learning, you'll just learn, right? Like you said earlier, learn posing. If you spend enough time watching videos, learning those sort of things, understanding what you want to do, you can pick that up pretty quick. But if your business systems aren't in place, you're going to be playing catch up on the business systems for the whole time.
Absolutely.
And if you plan on being a full-time photographer at some point, like you want it to scale up, you've got to have those things in order, because otherwise you're going to just be kind of chasing your tail, right? Like you got to be financially sound and understanding like, okay, this is the taxes that I need to pay. This is the money I should be setting aside just so that I have that money put in a place that's, safe, because it's easy early on. You're like, oh, if I get this lens, I got a $2,000 deposit. If I buy this lens now, my life is going to change. I'm going to create better work, but it's not going to book you more weddings. That lens isn't going to immediately book you more weddings. But if you figure out the marketing side of things and how to take people in a little bit better and give them that better overall experience, if you're investing in your education and that sort of stuff, you're going to get more out of it than buying that lens. And then the lens will be nothing, right? Like after 2-3 years, you're going to be like throwing money at lenses all the time. You're like, $2,000, no problem.
That's nothing.
I want that one. Yeah,
I'm so good. I'm just gonna get sponsored by one of these companies, and they're gonna give me free lenses. That's the
there you
goal.
go.
Isn't that why we all got in there, to get sponsored and be ambassadors? And hint, hint, after shoot ambassador Marvin Blue. No.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's going to be some people's goals for sure, right? Like when you're in this industry, you want it. Like that was never my goal. So for me, it was like I'm gonna make my own schedule. I'm gonna make a ton of money doing it. It's gonna be awesome. And then I accidentally tripped into this because of the position being at Aftershoot and having this different perspective on things. It really forced me a lot more into the educational space, and then it turned into like, I really want to learn this from you, and then it just kept compounding.
Oh yeah.
So that's, you never know where your journey is going to end up. I never thought I'd be an educator, right? Like that never occurred to me. I'm personable. Yeah, I can teach people stuff, but I never thought that I'd be.
I mean, you got the look. You got a charismatic look. I mean, I always say part of it is the charisma, because I mean, there are some people that have a wealth of knowledge, but it's like you have to be dialed in to sit and talk with them for 30 minutes because the way their voice is, and but they're technically sound. And let's say if you want to learn something, that guy knows it. You just got to sit through. You maybe have a cup of coffee because he's not good at that part, and he knows that. And but again, it's as you as a student, your willingness to learn and who you're going to learn it from. I mean, when we talk about ambassadorships, all that stuff, I always joke, say I never wanted to be a NASCAR driver. I don't want to be the jumpsuit with all these different brands on me, because and I always say it's the influencer / photographer where it's like, oh, love this image, and then you look at all the hashtags they have to do all these specific hashtags and make sure they're tagging all the sponsors. It's like that gets daunting, because that's not fun anymore either. It's like, what happened to just us taking awesome pictures and having a good time with it? Make sure we tag. I got to tag this person, tag that one. That's why I was like, I'm trying to be a minimalist. So I don't have to tag everyone.
That's the danger in becoming like in getting into a space where you have to represent something, right? Like, I mean, that's, for me, if I were not a part of Aftershoot, it fits my business the best. That's why I feel really happy. And I'm like, we designed it for me, right? Like the culling works really good for me because it was based on me from the start. That all of these things that really, if I weren't here, I would still be purchasing Aftershoot because of like the business model, right? Having a flat rate. I know that with one session, I paid my entire Aftershoot for the whole year. That
Absolutely
matters to me, right? Like all of these different things, like no Wi-Fi. I live in Connecticut. It's not like some crazy out there place, but I'm surrounded by trees. So I will lose power at least 3 times a year. And I don't want to be sitting here like, oh, okay, I have 3 days with no electricity. I'm running on a generator so I can maybe plug in the computer, but I don't have Wi-Fi. So I can't edit or cull or do my things that I normally would do. So all these things kind of really factor into it. The data privacy, right? We don't want to have like, that's a concern of mine. I don't want all of my images somewhere using for like Gen AI or something like that. So it's all local. That's, again, all of these things, it just matters to my business. And that's why I like the brands I associate with. It's companies that really matter to me, right? It's in the danger of becoming ambassadors and sponsored and all of that sort of stuff, is that you have to peddle whatever it is And for me, I don't want to peddle just anything. I want to actually, they're products I really believe in. They're products I really use that I think make a difference. Nobody pays me to do anything. It's literally just, this is the best solution that I found for me.
Yep. I always say I don't push out anything that I don't use. And I've been, even when I started the podcast, I was approached by companies, hey, we'll pay for this or pay for that. And again, that was all new to me because again, I didn't read the playbook on when you start a podcast, how much money is going to come your way, or how many, and I was like, I don't even use your product. I don't want to lie to my friends. Like most of them are people that are going to listen to this initially are going to be my friends. And they're going to know if I'm full of shit. They're like, dude, you don't use that. I've seen you don't promote that stand. You use cheetah stands, or don't promote that flash. You use whatever you're using, just that's what you use. If the people that you're using approach you, then yeah, you're doing something right. But again, don't take it just for the sake of to have it, again, don't be the NASCAR driver because you might have some companies that you don't believe in. Now you got to peddle their stuff, promote them when you're at your next thing. Yeah, it's great to be sponsored, but go about it the right way and do it with stuff that you actually are willing to put your name on the line for.
Absolutely.
Anyone knows me, they know I use Aftershoot. I'm a proponent with editing AI, the whole AI thing. I became an advocate for it because again, I'm in the stage of my life where if this was me 10 years ago and didn't have the kids, then I wouldn't care about the AI stuff. But now because you have the kids and you want to spend time and you want your time back, these things are now become an important piece. And you're paying for that convenience and that have the weight lifted, and that's with anything that we're using, So that's always been my thing. Just use what works for you, and just don't say yes to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that and it's all about integrity and morals, and you're going to find some photographers who just don't have that, and you're going to find others that are to the core, they believe in the product or the people behind it or whatever it is. They have their actual reasons. So, and then others are like, hey, this is my chance to get rich. I see it.
Exactly.
I'm sure you all see it on Instagram with the guy that's got the sponsored post that's like, hey, I'm going to make you $100,000 tomorrow if you sign up, right?
I love it.
He's not doing it because he believes in what he's doing.
It's like, are you ready to book 100 weddings? Are you ready to book 100 weddings? Because that's just an unrealistic goal. None of us are booking 100 weddings.
100 weddings.
I don't even. That's 100 conversations I don't want to have. Let's slow down. I just want to do 15. I'm good. Just give me my 15. I live in Texas. I'm good, man. I only need to get so many weddings to survive out here. So it's like meet so and so. They booked with my project. They booked 75 weddings in one weekend. Dude, how did they have all those conversations?
Yeah. I'm not.
That's early retirement. If they were getting paid what I'm getting paid, and there's 75 weddings they booked, man, I'm retiring after that season. That's my last season.
Yeah, that's a lot of money in the pocket.
Exactly. It's like, nope, I'm retired. What happened? I was like, I don't need to do it. I work for free now. I do a pay as you go. I just say, hey, my business model is not pay it forward. I shoot your wedding, and then whatever you think you want to give me, that's what you're paying for the next bride. And then I'll book I just book weddings I want to do from now on because I'm so rich. The deposit's $1, and then the payment is whatever you want to give me.
I love it.
But hey, Justin, man, I want to thank you so much for your time. I just realized went over an hour. It's I lost track of time.
I'm so sorry, everybody, that you had to sit and listen to us for an hour.
They could do that watching, my super friends can be like, dude, you got Justin, yes. And then of course I'm going to get a bunch of heat because I use Imagine AI. I'm like, hey, you use whatever as long as you're using something.
You use what works best for you in your business model, right? I mean, that's
exactly
the easiest way to put it. There's so much competition and stuff in the industry, so you really do have to sit down and look at what is the thing that benefits your business and your flow the most. And it may not be an aftershoot, right? It may still be manual. There's people that probably aren't in their position to even start with AI, but you got to find where you're going on your own from someone else.
Because people still struggle of letting go of certain things. Even if it may be the simplest task to you, but to them it is their entire foundation. If they give that up, it does not sit well with them. So I totally get it. I still handle all of my CRM stuff because I use 17 Hats to do all my CRM stuff, but to have someone else do it for me, I don't know if I could ever give that up because I want to see that email come in and I want to read it. I don't want someone to say, well, Marva will probably say this, and then email them back because I might be in a different mood that day and actually say, you know what? No, I'm going to give them that,
Yeah.
So
absolutely. That was a hard one to let go for me too. So
yeah.
Well, Marvin, you are an amazing human. Thank you so much for having me. I love seeing you in all the conferences and hanging out. So
thank you. Justin, where can everybody find you at on social media?
Yeah, so I'm at J Benson Photography, and then of course, if you want to follow Aftershoot, we're at Aftershoot though. So those are the two places you'll see some amazing stuff from us.
All right, we'll make sure we plug all your stuff in the show notes as well. Okay, so again, thank you so much for your time, and it's been amazing. I cannot wait to see you on the next go around. It'll be probably sooner rather than later because we're already about to hit October, not August, October. Yeah. Holy crap. We're about to hit a whole new crop of conference season coming up before we know it. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Bye.
And got it. Thank you so much, man.
No problem.
That's it for this week's show. Again, thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with others. Leave those reviews and check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until then, see you next week.